All right, what's up, y'all?
Uh,
Can everybody hear me? Yes. I'll try to project a little bit as well. So welcome, and this is a historic moment. As Roby was already saying, this is the first time in the history of the Faculty Club that you have a show with exclusively Black artists. So we'll round of applause for that. So I will do no justice introducing my fellow panelists, so I will allow them to do that. I'll start myself and give you a little more introduction of who I am. So, Terron Banner, born and raised in Columbus. So from here, I left and went to Kentucky State University, which is an HBCU. So I thought that was fitting to where that for this conversation. I came back to Columbus in 2013, and I did my PhD at OSU in Arts Administration, Education, and Policy. So since then, I've been teaching at OSU. I developed a course called Black Art in America, Art and Cultural Policies from Reconstruction to Afrofuturism. I'm also the manager of Community Learning Experience at the OSU Urban Arts Space. So it's an honor to be here. I'll pass the mic to Dr. Summer Lucky.
Hi, my name is Dr. Summer Lucky, and I serve as the interim director of the Frank W. Hill Junior Black Cultural Center, so the building right behind this one. I'm originally from Youngstown, Ohio. Completed my undergrad at Kent State. Can you speak that?
Can we get some up on the mic? What? Mic is sounding low.
Completed my master's in counseling and my doctorate in human development and family science here at Ohio State. So while I do work in administration at the Health Center, I also serve as adjunct faculty in the School of Education at Capital University as well.
how y'all doing?
Hi.
My name is Dante Wood Spikes, born and raised in Columbus. I don't know what story to tell y'all because I got a couple of them, but I consider myself to be a community archivist. And the way that began was around 2000. It was way back then. I don't know the date, but I started a teens group, and one of the young men in my teens group was murdered. I did not know how to use a camera, but the place where I worked at, I told them that I want to get a camera so I can document the voices of all the other young men. So just in case something happens, we have their stories documented and we can showcase to the world what these young men are saying. As time passed, I began finding different things to document and record. And one of the artists, Duarte Brown, was one of the first artists that I began documenting about 10 years ago. And he opened up the door to begin documenting other artists and different things taking place in the Columbus community. And what's interesting is when I first did it, I didn't know what I was doing. But now that I look back on all the documentation that I have, I can tell the truth in a lot of situations where people may not know what the truth is.
I really appreciate that answer, especially somebody who has
I documented you.
you did so much just good documented by you and has also watched some of your family documentary work and was like blown away by it. Hi, my name is Ajane Dawkins. I am a poet, a conceptual artist, and a theologian. And I got into art at a really young age, and I had no clue what I was doing. But I started writing in elementary school, middle school. I was like, this is the Tumblr era. If you came of age of the Tumblr era, and there were all these like poetic quotes, and I was like, oh yeah, I write quotes. And then I saw a poet performing at HBO Def Jam, and I was like, oh, that's what I do. And it's just a moment of seeing and acknowledgement. I think that's part of why I believe exposure is important. And I had the opportunity to be a part of a program called Inside Out Literary Arts Project that specifically developed young writers who were in Detroit, in Metro Detroit. And to make a very long story short, that kind of began the trajectory for the rest of my life, which is part of why and so passionate about programs that develop youth, that see and value our youth as scholars and artists and begin taking them seriously in those interests early on, because it has been a continuous series of public programs that have sustained my practice as an artist since him. So
Hello. I'm Josiah. I'm one of the graduate researchers and assistants at Urban Art Space. My research grounds itself in reclaiming depictions of trans Black bodies and basically writing a love letter to writing a love letter to those individuals.
Thank you. What are you doing, Bill?
Hey, y'all. Good evening. My name is Maurice Stevens. I'm a faculty member here at the Department of Comparative Studies. I did a PhD in a program called History of Consciousness, which is not about consciousness so much as it is about how communities and individuals kind of understand themselves as actors in history and they represent that. So I did a lot of work in representation, racialization, trauma theory, trauma studies. I worked in mental health for a long time before that. And so my basic main driving interest is in how, in the midst of and the aftermath of overwhelming events, people figure out how to make a way out of no way and how they bring the new into the world in miraculous ways. And I think art does that. I think writing can do that. And I think I'm here in part because of, I don't know, my dedication to cultivating spaces where people can be liberated or liberate themselves.
Hello, my name is Arris Cohen. I am a co-curator of this exhibition, and I'm also a visual artist, muralist, and educator. I teach acrylic painting at Franklinton High School in Franklinton over on 89 Havendale. Been there for 3 years now. This is crazy that I'm about to say this. I am a recent graduate of the Ohio State. Still trying to wrap my head around that, but I just graduated this past December after a long, arduous journey, and I'm thankful to be here. I'm a student. I'm the student forever. I'm a student of all of the people that are artists in this exhibition, all of the panelists up here. I just like to be inspired and learn from people that are passionate about what they do.
Okay, so without further ado, we'll go ahead and hop right into these questions. The questions will be directed at a few individuals, but they're open to everybody. So keep it a conversation. Arris called me maybe a couple of weeks ago, and it was like, man, we were in some side assignment. And the first one he said was the seat, the table in the future. I'm like, okay, we have something back, right? So Arris, this question is for you. The seat, the table, the future, right? Those have both symbolic and metaphorical meanings. My question is, so how would you explain those concepts in a way that gets to the heart and the essence of this show and this panel, right? What do those really mean, and how are they essential to what you're doing, what we're doing collectively, and what we're doing at the institution?
Wonderful question. And because I called you a few weeks ago asking, helping, leading your help in brainstorming a title, I wrote something for it to make sure that I was concise. It's very brief. The seat represents agency and presence, both literally and as a physical place, symbolically. There is a claim in that to identity and belonging. The table itself is a site of exchange and collaboration. It symbolizes community and power dynamics, and it focuses on who is included and who is excluded. Future is the horizon shaped by our choices today. It's a reflection of the positions we take and the dialogues we engage ourselves in. Together, they explore how our actions shape collective possibilities. So when I think of having an exhibition in a place like this that 30 years ago wouldn't have happened. When I think of my own journey and how I felt hopeless at a point, how at one point I didn't feel like I belonged at a table with people like this. For me, it's an individual thing, but it's also collective, because most of my inspiration comes from the stories of others, and how it aligns with something that I've been through. And so I'm really, really excited to hear what you all have to say about it.
Thank you, Pete. Now, everyone know we're good. Thank you for sharing that. Have you ever been at a table before and there was somebody there that you wish wasn't at that table? And you like, this would be a much better experience if you weren't at this table. Have you ever been at a table where you felt so in awe because the person you're sitting across from makes you feel welcome and you feel like you matter? You feel like you found a place where you belong. And what I've learned in my lifetime in 34 years is, you're younger and impressionable. You seek to find those tables to sit with those people. And then you start to realize you're in a position where you can create that table. I feel like this show in particular takes a institution and says, let's make space at the table for our Black artists. Tiffany Lawson, one of the artists that are actually in the exhibit, she had a showcase here. When was it, Tiffany? 2022. And I had her on video. She was talking about how she just hopes that the space utilizes it and provides more voices for Black artists. And here we are today, utilizing the space. And another thing too is Duarte. He frequently says a seat at the table when he's talking about connected and building community and family. And when he was at the Aminah house, and this is just to showcase how deep he is, he created a meal. And for if anyone doesn't know Aminah, I'm positive most people do, but Aminah Robinson, one of the most famous Columbus artists that ever exists, is now deceased, but he created a meal. And as I was documenting, he put name tags, my name, his name, Aminah's name, and her son Sydney name at the table. And me and Duarte were just sitting there talking with each other about the meaning of sitting at a table together as a collective and a community, and what's it like to make space for people, whether they're here or not.
Dripping. It will end. And faster than here's. Let's stop.
The first thing I think about when I think about the table is not the idea that it's neutral, but my first question is always who built it, and who does it belong to. I feel like the rhetoric that I kind of grew up around is the idea that you're fighting for a seat at the table, and especially as a Black artist, fighting for a seat at the table of institutions or in places that have previously maybe not welcomed you. And coming now into rhetoric where there's a lot of discussion about what it means to build our own tables, about what it means to have created something for ourselves so that there's not a waiting for an invitation, but also what it means to sit somewhere and not worried about being placed, about what you're about to be fed. What it means for coming to the table to meet, at the conversation that's happening there is going to shift because you've now arrived and you're offering something different than other people were prior to you. So I almost have a neutral feeling about the table, and it shifts based on what room I'm in and who's mentioned the table and who's offering the invitation ready. And I think about it as an opportunity. If there's a table that I'm at, is how can I make this table safer for somebody else to come sit down, as somebody who's had a lot of hesitancy when I've been invited to share meals.
Wait,
It's my
Are y'all feeling what's building in this space? Are you feeling anything within yourselves resonating with what you're hearing? That's part of what I think about. Like what's always already there in the place and what's allowed to emerge because folks have come together in a certain kind of way. Like it's always already there and it's been there. And I don't know. I have this feeling about the future and the present and the past being all together all at once. And that's part of what who built what the table's built from, what it's emerging from. It's all kind of radically contextualized to that moment, like it's being built out of what was always already there. And yeah, this table's awesome.
Yeah.
And this table's awesome. And this institution, at the same moment that things like this can emerge as a possibility, other things are going away. At the same moment. And so all of that is swirling together. And it's an honor.
One thing that always comes to mind, I think about like the table. I think of Paulo Freire's Pedagogy of the Press, right? And if there's not a seat at the table, then you may be on the meeting, right? So it's always important to have accents, this voice, this perspective, in these places, right? Because we're here, but there are others, right, who come after us and before us. And it's important that we honor that and that we walk into that and provide that agency. I'm going to the next question. So I think we all can agree that art is an extension of ourselves or oneself, right? At the same time, Blackness is not a catch-all. Black folks aren't monolithic, right? But we do have a shared identity, right? That binds us and that connects us. So as we look at all these artworks, right, and how unique and individualized they are, but yet there is something there in that text is all, right? My question for everyone, right? What does this work in this exhibition, in this gallery, say about you if you're in the show, or how does it speak to you?
And so when Robbie asked me to give a list of artists that I would like to be a part of the show, the first thought was, who have I connected with? Who do I look up to artistically? Who has helped pave the way for what I'm doing? And again, not only just artists in the exhibition, there were some that weren't able to be a part of the exhibition that I've taken. There are also panelists who are artists that I look up to as well. So when with Sankofa, you look at the past, you recognize where you come from, and in the present, you look at where you are and look forward into the future. And so all of these artists represent where I've come from, where I hope to go. For instance, I don't know if you've seen Josiah's work, but yeah. So there are artists who are technically sound and just amazing, and their concepts, their connection to the city. All of this work I'm connected to it, and the people who created it are people I love and care about. And that was the point of picking up. So.
Oftentimes when I think about table discussion and being invited into a conversation, and you think about the voices that don't necessarily have the opportunity to have the same ability to tell those stories. I think for me, when walking around in this gallery space, this like personal lived experiences and potential avenues of learning stuff from one another. And that's what is really special about all these five artists and researchers. It's that we all have a double consciousness, being able to understand where we meet with one another and see that they are contributing something to overall community that's needed and one's here.
I think when I first came here, one of the first pieces I looked at was Duarte's piece that was of Elder West. And I really had to stop and pause because I really just felt like energy coming from the work. And I don't know if you all know this, but the Underground Railroad runs behind this building that separates us from the Hale Center. And my mentor, Dr. James Moore, he would always tell me when I was in the Hale Center working there, like, you stand on hollow ground. And he would always tell me that to encourage me to finish my program, to keep going, because all of my work was centered around Black youth being seen, Black youth being valued, Black youth being heard, Black youth knowing who they are, where they come from, and that they have all of the ability to move forward. And I think when I look around the gallery and I see the different works and I see the different representations of who we are, it makes me question, okay, what am I doing to allow the students here at this institution who are sometimes not valued, right? And sometimes are explicitly being discriminated against. Sometimes are being explicitly excluded from opportunities, from conversations, from educational positions that will elevate them, not just now, but even for their future. What am I doing to make sure that they have access, to their ancestors, to these beautiful people that are sitting on this panel that also have the same passions and the same interests that they do, that sometimes the dominant culture is telling them are invalid. So I wrote down, I said, this gallery is a reminder of my role and why I'm weird. And that, even though I can get caught up sometimes in the bureaucracy of what is happening here, trying to protect the safe space that so many the students and the alumni have within my center is actually bigger than me. My work is bigger than me. And I have to keep that at the forefront in order, one, to keep myself encouraged, but also, two, to keep myself grounded. Like, girl, you are Dr. Summer Lucky, but it's really not about you. Okay. It's good.
So I'm going to ask you a follow-up question, Dr. Lucky. So I'm skipping around a little bit with the page, right? So I'm hearing like you describing all this work, right? And work, it's a process. In the same way artists create, there's a process, right? I'm thinking about your work. I'm thinking about Arris's, and this panel, this exhibition, right? Us all up here exists because of this support system, this arts ecosystem, this solidarity economy, this mutual aid, right? That we've cultivated. And as Black educators, artists, creators, etc., right? We're doing this work. How do you stay true to the values and the community-centered principles, right? As you go through this process, because it's hard, right? And what's it like doing that within an institution, or embedded in an institution, right? And then for the artists as well and the creatives, your process, right? What is it like doing that in your artistic process or your creative process, staying true to those values, those ideas, and those morals?
Well, it's hard, I think. You really have to know your why. You have to know who you are. You have to know what you stand for. And there's a lot of self-talk, a lot of inner self-talk that you're constantly telling yourself. and reminding yourself of, because you are in a position of power. You do have the ability to make choices that impact, your organization, that impact the students you serve, that even impacts the community, right? We know that Ohio State is siloed from the Columbus community, and that should not be. I also know that the Columbus community, mostly the community that looks like me, is distrustful of the institution, right? So, what does that process look like in connecting? And I will say, as long as I've been in this role, what really has held me down and helped me navigate the institution is really like community. So the people sitting at this table. When I first was in my role, Arris was he may have been the first exhibition we had in the health center last year, correct?
Yep.
And if you all could see the way the students in the center looked when they realized Arris was the one who created the art on the walls, they were blown away. And it's things like that that keep you grounded, that keep you moving, that let you know that what you are doing is important. And you have to really be able to connect with folks like Terron, with folks like Maurice that are interested in doing the work. And that, have the same goals and the same values as you do, that you can go to sometimes when you need insight or wisdom, like I navigate things, but also that can support you when you have to stand 10 toes and while you're doing what you're doing, even though those around you may disagree or those above you don't want you to actually do that thing. And it's all about the community. Like, the institution is for the institution. I think we all know that. But if we are really here to serve students and to build ongoing learning, then we need to implement some different practices, some different policies, protocols, and procedures that actually are serving the people we say that we are here to serve.
Can I jump in on that? Well, first, the very first thing I want to say is, and I'm going to keep saying this, keep noticing what's happening within yourself as you're being part of this conversation. That it's not just about how do we just space and consuming art, consuming words, consuming stories, consuming what's being placed and shared at the table. So that's first an invitation, just to keep noticing how are you being moved? How is this touching you? What's happening within you? The other thing I want to say is that institutions like this often believe that this is the only place where real knowledge gets made. That, the regime of knowledge production in the academy is one of like scientific methods. There's a way that knowledge gets made. And that's partly why so much of the relationships in partnership have been troubled, because institutions like this believe that this is where knowledge is made and the world is where knowledge gets applied or tested, or people get their extracted relationships. And I believe in and this goes to Saya's comment too, that there's this double consciousness thing, but part of the challenge in Black art, racialized representation, is it's so hyper fixed by social beliefs that you have to do all kinds of crap just to get out from under the weight of anti-Black racism and white supremacy in this country. You'd have to do so much to get out from under that, to transform yourself into another kind of experience of life. So there's the knowledge production of the institution, but then there's also the kind of knowledge that is made through art practice, that is the making of art. All of you art makers in here, that's thinking too. It's not the same kind of knowledge regime, but it's its own kind of knowledge making. And then there's participatory knowledge production that happens when people get together and make knowledge together, and that's a whole nother knowledge regime, also powerful. So what we can do when we bring all those different ways of making knowledge together is super powerful and transformative. So much possibility in it. And I think we talk about regenerative engagement here, especially in the arts ecosystem projects. Lisa and her office and the Office of Engagement and Vaccine Sciences, we believe that it's possible to actually collaborate and partner in ways that create more for everyone, instead of this transaction where someone is up less, right? So I believe it's possible somewhere. I could.
Something that I have to remind myself consistently is that institutions are not people. And so institutions are, and they have a very specific function. Institutions are incapable of love. And that is not because they are failing, but that is because they are not human things. They are filled by human people. Institutions have a mission and they have resources. And it is the people in those phases who navigate those systems and steward those resources. And reminding myself that no matter how intimately affiliated I am with an institution, it does not make me the institution. It does mean that I can abide by a different set of rules than that institution is required to abide by. And I can practice with an ethic of love. I can choose to speak differently, to make different kinds of decisions because I am not beholden to shareholders and investors and stocks and all of these things that like run the machine. And so in that way, it's actually a very, something I'm very grateful, the constant reminder that I'm a person and not an institution, and that helps me ground and maintain my boundaries. And also make sure that when I'm in a space, I can decide to move with the ethic of community that I have and not attempt to understand the ethic of community and the organization or the institutions, because an institution can have bylaws, but it can't have an ethic necessarily, or not a human one.
So, Ajane, I hear you. Now I'm thinking, right? So, yes, institution, right? There's tension at times.
Yeah.
Particularly for artists, right? And you're speaking of this ethic community, this ethic of love. And artists have that, right? Intentionally, intrinsically, artists have that. But as you all know, as artists, right, you also operate within these systems. So operate within institutions, within capitalism. These even big. So I'm thinking about Dante, I'm thinking about Ajane, Arris, Saya. How do you maintain, right, those ethics of community and love while dealing with the demands of an institution or an organization or a capitalist society, right? How do you maintain integrity in your process and stay committed to your process? And what's the importance of that process?
While navigating the institution of OSU, I often talk about how having any level of education is a privilege, and how in the program I'm able to spend the time to search in the realms that fulfill me and connect to individuals that don't necessarily have that same experience or opportunity to, which does mean at times I oftentimes lose myself in institution and having to find that direction again in community and other artists. And from this and this connection that we all share with cultivating spaces for people that don't necessarily have the opportunity, and just being mindful of the power that we all have, and just being able to just bring other community members with us is just kind of like the goal.
I have a short answer and I have a little bit longer answer. The short answer is I do contract work and I lead. Because I know now. Stay places. Sometimes you feel like You gotta leave your spirit and morals at the door just to exist in a space. And the whole time that you're there, you're thinking, I can't wait to leave. And then when you're leaving, you have this deep relief, and it's like, dang, I'm doing this every single day. It don't feel good. So I do contract work and I leave. The longer answer is if I do find myself in a space or I'm collaborating with an institution and I want to like maintain my morals and stand my ground, I think about how I began, what it is that I'm doing, and how sometimes we can become tokenized, or once someone has an idea, they tell us how they want us to. Yeah, I want you to talk about Black stuff, but I want you to talk about Black stuff like this. And I'm like, well, that's defeating purpose to talk about Black stuff. I'm the Black person. What you had? Why are you telling me all this about it? And sometimes we'll take those suggestions and do it in hopes that if I take this type of treatment, nobody else has to take this type of treatment. Or I'm thinking about a coming generation of young artists, and like, you know what? Maybe if I deal with this, I stay in this space, I can utilize myself as someone that can open up the door for younger artists or someone else. Because you can start talking to yourself and saying, well, I guess this is as far as I'm going to go. And this is what it is, when truthfully, it doesn't have to be that way. And what I do is, you know, I just leverage who I am as a person, where don't talk to me about diversity and then tell me how you want me to exist in your space. That completely defeats the purpose of it. If I don't tell you how to act, I don't tell you how to talk. Why you niggas cool? Why you cool with doing it with me? So don't tell me how you want me to come and show up and the people that you want me to impress. If you claim to serve a community, you want that space and that collective of people to show up, make sure that you actually mean that, because some of us are connected to those people and we can bring those people. But we're not bringing people in just as numbers, right? We're not bringing people in to reach a diversity quota. We're not bringing people in just because it looks good and we can get some great pictures. We had a people that find like the art in that room. It's people that found pieces of themselves when they saw it. They come here just to be in the picture. So keeping that in mind keeps me strong and stern when it's time for me to maintain my morals. And that's why I'm in contract work league.
Yeah, get the cucumbers and shit.
Oh my gosh. I appreciate that answer. For me, it is one sitting in contradiction, and just accepting that because of my like socioeconomic position in the world, that I'm going to have to contradict myself, or I'm going to have to exist in ways that maybe contradict some of my ethics, and that I can't do or focus on everything and make an effective living in the world. So I cannot care. Let me rephrase. I cannot act in the exact same with the exact same fervor for my care for the environment and big pharma and Black rights and X, Y, and Z, and exist within any institution, because I will at some point find a conflict with their funders, with their donors, with the people who have interest in them. So in order to work in the spaces that I work in, I choose an area to focus on. And I decide what my hard lines are. And my hard lines might not be someone else's. I focus on the things one of my focuses is increasing the material circumstances or the material resources and the access for Black women and Black gender expansive folks. And then I also, for people who have different lines than me, who have different focuses than me, while I'm focusing on my thing, even if it is not the line that would make me leave a space, I do not try to delegitimize the voice of anybody who's speaking out against the space that I'm in because they have a different priority or because they have a different concern. Because I think it's everybody having those different focuses that ultimately ends up holding a place accountable. So I work to defend the person and not the institution while not abandoning the people who are there, because if not for some people enduring really difficult things and really kind of maybe unethical things that might have in another space asked me to sever relationships with an institution, I would not have gotten access to really life-changing material resources that I did. I'm a poet, the money that I make, I'm not on the Mossy Coast, we're talking rent money. We're talking about the ability to purchase a home. We're talking about the ability to support and fund in a space where there's like increasing housing insecurity and wealth gaps here. And so thinking past just this moment of what is the stands mean materially for somebody who might try to be in this position 10 years from now.
All right, man, that's been the fire. I got a ball that. I was having a conversation yesterday with Tiffany, right? We were talking about at her exhibition. We were talking about artists and research, and are those things and they exist together? And we're at OSU, we're at an R1 institution, so research is important, right? And so within this academy, I'm always fighting to situate art within research, right? Arts-based research is a real thing, but let me digress. When I think about artists and creators, right? I think artists are researchers first and makers second, right? I think the end pieces, the artwork, the creations are the knowledge that comes from that process without research to the world, right? So my question to all of you, what insight, what knowledge can your work, your process, your program, right? What knowledge or insight can that bring to the world that perhaps traditional ways of investigating or understanding can't, right?
So for me, I believe some of the opportunities that I've had and the things I've documented, it only happened because I didn't come up through an institution. I did not graduate. I graduated high school. I didn't graduate college. I don't necessarily have a lot of credentials behind my name, but something I've always been able to leverage is authenticity and showing up with a genuine interest. And when you show up with a genuine interest with people, they appreciate that. And sometimes you have no idea who it is you're talking to or who you're giving the time of day to. And the reason I feel like those opportunities happen for me and it happens so like fluidly is because my style of engaging in documentation is strictly just because I want to do it and because I found somebody interested. And in the process of finding somebody interested, if you're trustworthy, because we know when somebody's trying to extract information out of us versus asking us a genuine question, right? And when somebody sees that you're genuine and you're documenting something that is historic, they'll introduce you to somebody else. Before you know it, you're introduced to a full community of people that you can consistently call on and look at as subjects and provide insight and information to spaces like this or somewhere else. And it's important to document and research outside of institutions because there's always more than one story. The institution is always going to tell the story that is victorious, makes everybody feel happy, which is perfectly fine. That's understood because that's what you're searching. It operates that way. But some of the different artists that I've been able to talk to over the years, they've shared some heartbreaking stories that no one else has heard. So what you'll get outside of an institution is a story that no one else necessarily knows. So when you're looking at their art, you're in spaces and you see what they contributed to, what they created. You're like, wow, I wonder how many people know what they had to go through just to get to this point to find the respect that they found in each moment. Because not everybody has given that to them. For example, Pheoris West, me, Duarte, have visited Pheoris West's home after he passed away to talk to Mama Michelle, his wife. And she was to share different things that she and Pheoris had been through as artists. And she had told me a story about how back then Black art wasn't embraced, like at all. And if it was very specific to what they wrote. And she had shared a story about how she took her art to a space here in Columbus. And they told her a few days later to come pick that art up and not bring that art back. And you realize that she's not the only person that probably experienced that. It probably was a lot of people. So documenting things of that nature is providing insight and understanding to the upcoming generation that you might go through some heartbreaking things too. I want to showcase that part as well, because you can find yourself in a space where you want to fit in, you want to sit at the table at an institution, but you might not be their flavor of the month or the year. And you'll start questioning, well, am I actually a good artist? Do I matter? And if you can't find space anywhere, and let's say time passes and you do find yourself somewhere, everybody loves you, and then a year later, it's a new flavor of Blackness that they want. Now you're like, dang, I ain't no good no more. So we have to make sure we document and share amongst each other. And that's what I feel like this is what we're doing tonight with each other. And I feel like that is my goal with the information that I document.
Thank you, Dante.
Well,
I'm sorry, Dan, to interrupt you guys because I've been waiting to you, but I really appreciate everything that you're saying. And the reason why I could appreciate it because when Queen Brooks, I'm on the cultural wall with Kojo, and Maple Sunami, we experienced what it was like to live at that time. At that time, Aminah was exhibiting her work and creating her work at CCAD when it was Columbus Art College. And they told her her work was not good enough. Jeez, okay? And we had no Black art in the Columbus Museum of Art. We were right across the street from the museum, and no one from the museum came into Kojo's gallery. And Kojo went to CCAD and picked up Larry Collins. He came to us. I was on TV and said, I want you in my gallery. He exhibited Elijah Pierce's work and put Elijah Pierce's work in his gallery. One of his pieces sold for $75, and the woman put the work on the Antique Roadshow, and it was valued at $10,000 to $15,000. Wow. That's what I'm raising my hands for, to let you know that everything you are saying is the truth. But the one thing I love more than anything else is the fact that Kojo created the idea here in Columbus and opened the door for all of the artists here. Opened the door for everyone. It didn't take any difference if you were Black, if you were white. If you were white and you want to put your work in this gallery, he let you come into the gallery. Only thing, and he may not even have liked your work, but he would put your work in his gallery so that you would have the exposure. That's what a book is. That is what art is, to express the who you are as a person and present it and put it on the wall. Queen came to the gallery and peeked through the window, and Kojo opened the door and told her, come on in. She was in, and she's here. She went in the door as a photographer said, Kojo, I don't like doing this. And Kojo said, go to school. And now she has her work in the Columbus Museum of Art. So what I'm saying to you, I really, really appreciate this presentation. And I did not know my history until I came back from Columbus. At that time, Kojo was known just as a photographer. And he helped so many people beyond himself. He glorified and showed Aminah's work, and he put himself down to help a lot of other artists, just like Duarte and Pheoris and Roman Johnson. I exhibited with Roman. I exhibited with, excuse me this expression, but I exhibited with Roman and Johnson when I was a little kid at Garfield Elementary School, which is now the King Arts Complex. So I really love it, Professor. I know we're supposed to be ending at 7 o'clock. And I want to make sure I told you guys that you are all beautiful, regardless of your color, regardless of your mental abilities. You are one, and you are going through your spirit to experience what Ubuntu means. Do you know what Ubuntu means? You may not know that it is we are community. We don't do just for one, we do for all. We give not just for ourselves, we give for everyone. And when I did a show in Kentucky, Kojo wasn't there, but his work was. And when I told him what his work represented, it sold. So that's what I'm talking about. And I really am happy to see all of you here. But I know there are other people that are into the arts and they have a story to tell. So when you see another person, let them express themselves and open the door for them to be who you are.
And that is a prime example of when I say the other story that you might not get. We just got that. Simple as that. So when you can capture moments like that, that's how you invest in the upcoming generation and give them true insight and understanding to their value, what people had to go through just to get here, and what it means to represent yourself if you have to. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for that.
Maybe there's some other people who want to share. I see a hand coming up right there.
Pass the mic around. Is that what you're around?
Yeah. I want to say it's time for Q&A now. Steve.
You know, this is my brother, Marshall Shores. He only do this, but I love this guy. I've known him since I was in the 4th grade, and he's been a mentor and just one of my favorite artists and favorite people. So just glad to be about it.
Thank you, Nas. So we are started there. Q&A now, I guess. So I've been in my notes app because there's a lot of smart people on the panel, so I have a lot of questions, but I'm gonna ask one. And I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget. So this past week, Franklin County inducted the first Black or person of color city prosecutor. And the Charter of Columbus, I think, has been around over 200 years now, right? And then OSU was founded over 150 years ago, I believe. Somebody correct. All right. Yes, 1870. Okay. So, and the faculty person said at the beginning, this is the first show that is showing exclusively Black artists. So, I often, in Black culture, we often kind of tout that as an accomplishment and something to be proud of, and it is. But I often wonder, and this is more a question for the artists in the show, what is the weight of being the first in an institution that has existed over 150 years in a state that was quote unquote free, and then where does that situate your art, and how you make your art? Do you feel a responsibility for your art at that point or not? Those are two different questions, right? Is there a responsibility? Do you feel a responsibility, or is there a responsibility, right? So what is the weight of, sort of being the first to show in a space like this? I have other questions about having a seat at the table, building your own table and all of that stuff, but I won't go into that. But what is the weight of being the first, if there is a weight? And then how does that, impact or situate your art in terms of responsibility or non-responsibility of the art that you make?
I got that one, sure. The very heavy weight being the first in anything in this situation is heavy because you want to do it right. And how do you do it right if it's never been done? Where do you get the information from? Who do you ask, right? So it was all about community, trying to make sure that it wasn't just about like my voice specifically. Again, I look at the stories of other people, but there, in terms of how does it inform my work or my research, I had to do a lot more. I realized that I have to do a lot more. I learned something like Dr. Lucky said that the Underground Railroad went right through there. I didn't know that. I've been here for a long time. Know that. So that's I need to do a lot more research, and I need to really pick up in how my work is being presented to others, technically and then conceptually as well.
Going back to the idea of institution and figure out ways of navigating that space, I oftentimes reflect on my time here as ups and downs, but most importantly, a transformative time of finding my voice and developing the language and the vocabulary to talk to that experience and find individuals that are doing the same. And I think a lot of in varying ways that we all are doing is just being able to have that time or carve out that time to reflect on how you interact in the world, and at least for me, see how I can contribute to it or radically create space for others that are having those similar conversations.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that just for anybody who may be hearing the first Black show, this is not the first Black show in this space. It's the first Black group show, perhaps, that's curated by a Black artist, but we have had numerous Black shows in this space, Queen Brooks being one of them, Aminah Robinson being another, Ike Newsum being another, and I'm not sure, but I think someone in the room may have other. Tiffany Lawson, that's right, we mentioned her earlier. So I wanted to be clear that I think the uniqueness is that it's a group exhibition curated by a Black artist, bringing together selections of people. And what I understood from the time when I worked with Ike Newsum and Queen Brooks, there were parameters around which selections could be made for artists, and please correct me, Robbie and or Marion, but the parameters had to do with the artists needed to be connected to Ohio State University. So I just wanted to clarify that.
I exhibited Ohio State University in the gallery of Ohio State.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of paper, and I curated the short work that you guys didn't know all about.
Right.
So it's a point. There was a lot of change coming because of us working as a group to invite everyone into the show. And that was started when Kojo they opened the door. And when he quit his work, when they shut down Miss Gallery of Washington Avenue and no one from the Plums Museum, then the people at the Short North, it was his first gallery, that was Black Gallery in the Short North. And when another artist had his gallery, and Kojo supported that gallery and helped that gentleman when he had his gallery in the Short North. So it's not just him, it's a lot of community-involved people. But I am still so proud of you guys being together and say, open the door and help explain, ask the person who has their work on the book, how did they create the work? Because that's the education. I had to wait until I was in graduate school for someone to explain to me what Ubuntu meant. And Ubuntu was what Mandela said in South Africa, because we lived in that culture where we were segregated that everybody knew they could walk the streets of Mount Vernon and Long Street and they didn't have to experience discrimination. And a lot of people excel in that. So I love you all. I love you all. And I'm happy to see the growth of art. And it's a shame that we have to wait in this world. It'd be so late in my life that these things are not have to wait till now to be exposed to who you are as individuals.
I think we have time for one more.
Great.
Hey, is everybody know Torrin? My artist got any show? Well, I don't think it could know back artist on me. We don't even know when maybe. I mean, it'd be nice to reach, you know. I think these are Percy here. I guess you should call us. You get just cleared up. In the butt. Like.
Can you hear me? Because I'm the oldest person in the artist, so I didn't hear it. So, what do you want?
Because I had asked us a question. How really is the way of being the black person carrying who up being in a space like this? However, that's that. Yeah, I didn't think it.
I accepted being in this space because I wanted to meet the younger artists. I do not go out often anymore. And I have things to do that require a lot of work that I no longer can work as fast as I thought I could. And so I just wanted the opportunity to see what you younger people have to say about how you feel about what's happening within your room, because you are the next generation and you are, excuse me, I didn't intend to talk. You are those who carry the banner. And I don't know, I've gotten lots of accolades, but I don't really know why. Because I've never set out to get anything. I've only wanted to do my art, and I appreciated that the art came from God. That's the way I feel. And that can any talent or any gift that's given, I think it's to be shared, right? Because we're all here to share with each other whatever we got going on. I think you all are wonderful young people. The art that I've not had ample opportunity to fully look at, from what I see, I want to look at. Because I can walk into an environment and say, not my kind of art, but this represents us in terms of our experiences, in terms of our love of color, in terms of our composition, in terms of our expressing ourselves as an individual, but hoping that we relate to whoever comes in. And maybe we can get 1, 2, or more people that can appreciate what we do. And that matters. As for my generation, yeah, we caught it. And Codeville was the first one. And Deidre, she had gallery too. And I was the first artist there. It was wonderful to have a place for us to go, because we just weren't welcomed downtown in the short north or at organizations, and it was okay because I knew that someday somebody would be copying us. Because I used to go downtown to the art that art fair downtown, and there was very few of us represented because our colors weren't exactly what was appreciated. So when last time I went, which was a long time ago, I saw these brightly colored art pieces, and I was like, "Oh wow, we got some more people." And I went and I ran and I looked, and they were not us. But all of a sudden, our colors have become institutionalized. They become accepted. They become art. Before, it's always been too bright. Everything's too bright. Why do you do bright colors? Because I like light colors. I'm doing pastels now because I like all colors. But I don't try to emulate anyone, and I don't try to help everybody in the world. I just try to help that one person that comes to me, or I see some promise, a young person that's not getting any help at home or from their family, who thinks it's a waste of time, who don't quite understand art, but think they have to understand art. That's the person I go towards. And all I do is just encourage them. I don't say, do art like me, do art like anybody else. Just do what your heart feels you're given to do. And that's the only joy I get, is that somebody else can feel good about themselves in doing what they have been brought here to do. And everybody, I believe, is an artist. I don't think you don't have to be a visual artist or a dancer or anything. God sent you here for a reason. And if you're good at doing it, you will succeed at whatever you do. But we spend our time looking into successful people and trying to be like them. If you bake cookies and everybody loves them cookies, you have to be baking cookies. You got to be doing it, because whatever you're here for, there is a purpose. And whether you believe in my God, your God, whatever God, but you're here for a purpose. We're here to discover what it is we have and share, and we're here to love one another, regardless of color, sex, anything. All those things are hidden to us, but we're here to love one another. And I'm just so happy that I have that nature, that I can love everybody. I can be really angry, but I can still love people. And I'm having a hard time in this last year and this year coming on loving people. And that I don't like that. Just if you, an artist, like some of you up there said, if you meet somebody and you see that they have talent, they have a devotion for what they do, then you put your arms around them and you give them the encouragement that they need. That's all. Everybody just needs some encouragement sometime. And if you don't have it, you feel like you're not seen. You feel like you're not loved. There's a lot of young people that are upset, angry, and just so mad because they don't know why. But it's because they don't know the love that they're missing from their parents or the loved ones in their environment. They don't know what it is they're missing. And so they're angry. So if you can help anybody in any way, do anything that's positive, please do it. Thank you.
You're supposed to sound, but before, I want to thank the artists for sharing your talents. Yeah, I'm better. Thank the elders for sharing their wisdom. Me and ancestors for paving the way. And for you all coming in.
Not for all y'all long, but there's no way I would have been able to do any of this by myself. I didn't really do much but fan out over everybody, to be honest with you. And so I'm thankful to Robbie for your mentorship in this and guidance and patience. Thanks to all of the artists for your talents, for your gift of just being in this show. I know that it's been cumbersome and there's been a lot of moving parts. Lisa Fullerman, Dr. Maurice Stevens, Urban Art Space. If I went through names, we'd be here another hour, to be honest. But everybody, small or big, whatever part you've had in this, thank you. Thank you all for coming out and sitting with us. So much more coming up in this year. And it's a very emotional moment. This being an exhibition that is the first of its kind, a group show curated by Black artists. I couldn't imagine being a part of it, and I'm thankful. I'm thankful. So hope you all have a great weekend. I'm gonna stick around for a little bit and try to personally thank everybody. But y'all have a great night.